Okay, today I am going to rant just a little bit. There is a lot of talk in the business world around the word hustle. And so many of us wear it like a badge when on the inside, we're just really ready for a nap. I've personally had some huge realizations just recently about my relationship to the hustle and really how much easier it is to produce results from a state of flow. What is the difference, you ask? Well, today we're going to dive in and talk all about hustle versus flow and how to find your own version of flow, no matter where you find yourself along the spectrum. Welcome back to Powerhouse Women, the podcast. I am so grateful you're tuning in today, and I want to have a little conversation about something I was recently asked on another podcast interview. And ironically, it was a podcast that my friend Brent hosts, which is called Life Outside the Hustle. And do you ever have those moments where until you are asked the right question at the right time, you don't even realize the growth or a breakthrough that you've personally had? Well, that was exactly what happened in this situation. And I just thought it would make a really interesting podcast conversation to bring to all of you, because I think especially as women, we have this badge of honor that we're great at multitasking, or we're trying to live the dream in the business world, and we're also trying to be everything and more as mothers and wives and friends and daughters, that no wonder so many of us are feeling burnt out and tired, just tired, straight up, need a nap. That's how I feel a lot of days. But it's interesting because I'm working on so many things that I genuinely love. So this idea of hustle always felt to me like that's the way that you produce results. And flow, if someone would have used that word in my presence a few years ago, I would have heard it as lazy, as just sitting back, allowing things to happen, very woo-woo. And I'm more type A. I am a doer. I just ask my husband if I have like a spare moment to myself, I'm thinking, what can I clean or organize around our house? Like, I'm such a weirdo. That's like how I unwind, as I organize a room of our house. Okay, so now that you know all of my secrets, I wanted to dive in and have this conversation today, because if I, a type A overachiever, could find my own version of flow and release myself from just the emotional stress of what hustle looked like in my life, then I know it's possible for you too. And I believe that finding the balance between hustle and flow is actually where the most efficient results are produced. So I'm all about efficiency. I love anything that's going to give me a hack to find better efficiency. But I want to share this. So when the question was asked of me on this podcast, it was something in relation to, how have I been able to find this state of flow in building the business that is people see as Powerhouse Women? And it gave me these immediate flashbacks to how differently I've been approaching building this business over the last 3 years. It's still relatively new, to a previous business that I had built, my health and wellness company, which I've actually had for about 9 years now. And I still have that business. It's not my full focus, but in that moment, I immediately was struck by the contrast, the huge contrast of how I felt while I was building my health and wellness business, especially in those first 3 years, to how I feel and the velocity with which results are happening within now what I'm building, which is Powerhouse Women. And I think that contrast in life is really such a beautiful thing, that if we can learn from contrast, it can be one of the greatest teachers. Because if I had not felt what it was like to be in, I think, what many would call hustle, and just that mode of always achieving, always looking forward to the next goal, always driven by my activity and this need, like, is this enough? Am I doing enough? Am I producing enough results? that if I hadn't felt what it was like to be driven that way, I don't know that I would fully appreciate the beauty of how the Powerhouse Women brand and business has unfolded. And so wherever you find yourself along this spectrum, if you are in just the hustle mode, which I'm going to break this down in a moment, hustle isn't a bad thing. But if you are in a mode where you sense that the hustle mode is showing up in maybe an unhealthy way in your life, that you really just never feel fulfilled, maybe you feel physically tired or mentally drained, that is not a sustainable way to build a business. And take it from someone who needed to get to the point of almost total burnout to realize this. To now being able to experience I'm still working very hard. I'm working very intentionally. I'm almost putting in more hours during the day, but it's a totally different experience. And it was cool to be able to answer this question on a podcast and have that realization real time of how much this has changed for me. And I think that teaching women and all of us holding each other accountable to finding our own version of flow is crucial if we're really going to make the impact that we're meant to make, because you can't continue to serve others from an empty cup. If you have nothing to give, if we're always just pouring everything we have and not taking that time to recharge or not finding balance, I roll my eyes even as I say balance, because I don't think that true balance is ever something we achieve all the time, but seasons of balance within our productivity, then we're not going to be able to keep up with the pace of what our vision demands of us. And I think part of the realization for me came from understanding that I had hustle and flow all wrong in terms of how I was defining them. So it wasn't on the surface, the activity I was doing or not doing. That's what I thought it was. I thought hustle was I work hard. Now, I'm a Midwest girl. I've told you that. And in the Midwest, we're just born and raised that you work hard, you get a good job, and that is like the ultimate success in life. And so I've always been, quote unquote, a hard worker, but I almost wore it like a badge of honor. I wouldn't allow myself to experience results that came what felt like easily for me. I felt like in order to achieve, it had to be paired with hard work. That was like misconception number one, because hard work doesn't necessarily mean what I would do, which is make up extra tasks just to make myself feel like I was producing, make myself feel like I was achieving. Sometimes the best thing that we can do for our vision or for our business is create space mentally, physically, create margins to allow miracles to happen, to allow creativity to strike. And I was leaving no space for that. So how I knew I was going to an unhealthy place with hustle came all down to how I felt. I was chasing after big goals and felt, for the most part, that I was always trying to achieve the next thing, but I was never really fulfilled. I was trying to force the outcome or the timing of these achievements instead of just trusting that if I showed up and I did the work, that the results would take care of themselves. So control being a huge part there. Let's just put a little star. We'll circle back to that. And then how did I feel? Was I stressed and obsessing over variables that I couldn't control? For me, the feeling of hustle versus flow is very distinct, to the point now where I've tiptoed into the flow state, and I have no tolerance for when I dip back into the hustle. It takes less than a day of maybe being in those unhealthy thought patterns of trying to control things or being frustrated or unfulfilled that I notice I'm off and I steer the ship back on course. So it was interesting. When I was on my friend's podcast, he asked me what helped me make that shift. Was it a moment? Did I drink a specific green juice or go to a meditation class? No, none of the above. But I think that having the opportunity to build something else that I never imagined. So for me, this is kind of how I started to tap into another option available, which was this flow feeling versus hustle, when I started building this Powerhouse Women vision, because I never imagined that this would take off. I never imagined it would become anything. So it was this interesting position to be in where I have a very different relationship to how this business is unfolding because I've never been in control of it. I don't have, if someone asks me where we'll be in 5 years from now, I don't know, because 5 years ago, I could never picture that I would be doing what I'm doing now. And that realization, I think, was my first answer to how I started to make that shift between an unhealthy, let me try that word again, right? Relationship to this word hustle, wearing it like a badge of honor, to finding my own version of flow, still working intentionally, doing things that I'm absolutely on fire, excited about every single day. But the number one thing that I had to do was realize that I wasn't in control. And control is a sneaky thing. It's kind of like a drug. Control tricks us into believing that we have any say over the outcome if we just work hard enough. But, if you really think about it, there's very, very few things in life we have control over. And I was trying to control everything in the way I approached business before. I just was so attached to a specific outcome that the stress I put on myself to do enough quote unquote work until I achieved that completely took any of the joy out of what I was doing. And even though I was building, this health and wellness focused business, and I genuinely had this heart, it was driven by a desire to help others, there was still something deep down that I was trying to prove to myself, prove that I was capable and that I was worth it. And releasing the sense of control was really what came first for me. Now, I never was really fully able to release the control around that business, but stepping into this new vision of Powerhouse Women, and walking forward towards something that I couldn't have dreamed it up, so who am I to try and control where it goes, allowed me that beautiful contrast perspective to see, oh, that's why it felt so unfulfilling at times, the way I was approaching it before. That's why it felt so hard, why it felt so stressful, because I was fully trying to control every little thing. So if you're a control freak like me, I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news that for me was like step number one, but I'm still working on it. I'm still every day catching myself trying to control different outcomes. But that was the number one, like highlighted, underlined, the biggest thing that I identified as the difference between my experience building from a place of hustle versus a place of flow. And then, okay, so this is one that actually struck me this morning when I was out for a hike. I live in Phoenix and I have to get up kind of early to hike this part of the year these days because it's hot. But I was out for this beautiful hike. We have a trail right in our community, and it was interesting because I caught myself knowing that I had a timeline. I had to come to the studio and record, and I had a specific time I needed to be here. In my mind, I was rushing through this hike. I was on a timeline, and I knew that I had to be back at my house to get ready for the day at a certain time. And all of a sudden, I just paused and I looked up and actually made myself stop and look at the scenery. It was beautiful. It was like so breathtaking. And my eyes were down and I was like pumping my arms. Like imagine those mall walkers with their windsuits. I was like mall walking this beautiful hiking trail because I wanted, to get a good workout in, but I was rushing. I was not pausing to take a look at what was around me or celebrate the milestones along the way. So you can kind of see where I'm going with this. That was exactly how I was operating when I was in a state of hustle. I was never pausing to celebrate the small wins along the way. I was always just hyper-focused on an end result. And you guys, I missed so much. I missed so many opportunities just to soak in the moment, or even something as simple as pause and acknowledge myself for a really brave or bold step that I took. or to recognize the growth that I was undergoing. I was so caught up in the destination that I wasn't enjoying the journey at all. And that really struck me this morning when I was on this hike, because I was rushing through it trying to finish versus enjoying the scenery. And the latter example, enjoying the scenery, is very much how it feels when I'm in this flow state, still working intentionally and still, have my eyes on the end goal. Like, for example, right now we're planning for the Powerhouse Women event in September. I have my eyes on that end goal. I can see and feel, like I can literally close my eyes and imagine what it's going to feel like in that room. And I'm so connected to what that day is going to feel like. But every single day, I am having conversations with women about their goals. I'm behind the scenes planning for surprises that we haven't even announced yet and getting so excited, but I'm enjoying that moment in the present instead of waiting for some arbitrary endpoint in order to allow myself to enjoy the ride. And that's been huge for me, is just realizing that if I'm not enjoying myself in this moment right now, I'm doing it wrong. I'm not living into the full vision of what we want to create if I'm stressed and if I'm just hustling and hyper-focused on an outcome. I might miss a surprise turn in the journey that I was supposed to take because I was too locked on to and too obsessed and attached to an outcome. So totally applicable. And I get so many little downloads when I'm hiking. If you live in Phoenix and you want to hike with me, trust me, I get some of my best ideas when I'm out there. And then, okay, this is the last one that really has been a huge part of shifting from feeling like I'm in a state of flow versus a state of hustle. And that is the fundamental truth that we talk about all the time within Powerhouse Women. Remembering that it's not about me. It's very interesting how much I would say that I was in it for other people. And there was a huge part of me that got a lot of fulfillment out of helping others in their health and wellness journey. Absolutely, that was true. And deep down, there was a piece of me that was so attached to proving something about myself, which was all about me, nothing at all about others or the impact I wanted to make. And that was where I noticed stress. I had no stress at all around helping other people or serving them or impacting them. I had stress around these high expectations I would put on myself, or sometimes unrealistic expectations or benchmarks that I was supposed to reach, rather than, again, like just what I was saying is enjoying the journey and savoring those moments along the way. But this was the other side of it. And it's interesting how I've related to when people will speak about Powerhouse Women and they'll say, gosh, I know how you feel. It's your baby. It's this thing that you've created. And what's interesting is one day when someone, was saying that to me, a little voice inside kind of just went, this is not your baby. It's not. This, saying that it's my baby makes it feel like it's about me, makes it feel like it's something that I started and I created versus this vision that I kind of just believe chose me. It was like this opportunity put in front of me that I choose to wake up every single day and go to work to make sure it gets fulfilled. And having that relationship now, if you feel like your business is your baby, by all means, I'm not saying that that's a bad viewpoint to have. I'm saying that for me, having the viewpoint that it is not my baby, this vision is so much bigger than anything I could have ever imagined. It's something that is so much bigger than just one person. It's bigger than me. That helps keep my perspective in the right place, that I simply work for this vision. So if the vision needs to pivot, if the vision wants to create a subvision or go in another direction, I don't take it as personally. It's not about me or my identity or what it means about me as a founder and creator if it changes and looks different in the future than how it looks now. And when I related to something like it was my baby, I started this, I felt like, again, it just brought me back to that place of control. So for me, I remind myself often that this is not about me. So if I'm making a decision, it's not about what's best for me or how does it make me feel. It truly is all about, does it serve the purpose? Does it help to achieve the outcome that we say we're here for, which is to help women get out of their own way into action around their big ideas. And if the answer is no, then I know it's time to pivot, or it's time to look in another direction. So gosh, all of this to say, and here I thought this was going to be like a quick conversation. Apparently I have a lot to say on this topic, but all of this to say is that, the stress of the hustle can really put a weird energy around your vision, and it can start to stifle the true creativity of what you're capable of. And again, not to say that hustle or working hard is a bad thing, because it's not. And I know that those of you who are chasing after big goals and dreams, you are getting up every single day, especially those of you who are also balancing family and work and a career, meanwhile launching this vision. I know that takes work, but I think it all comes down to our mindset. And are we attached to the hustle because we think it says something about us, or are we more committed to the greater impact that we will make and the true outcome that we are here to serve? And I know for me, when I answered that question, it was very clear. I am going to choose a life of flow whenever possible, and notice when I'm dipping into those seasons of hustle, because it happens, and I'm human, and I still find myself vacillating between the two every single day, every single week. So I want to know, do you struggle with this? What has helped pull you back into your flow state? Or do you feel like you've never experienced this mystical flow state that I keep talking about? Join the conversation in our private Facebook group. You can find us if you just search in the Facebook search bar for the Powerhouse Women Community, request to join, and we cannot wait to connect with you more there. As always, remember, you are not meant to do this alone, and hopefully some of these conversations are showing you that no matter what you're experiencing and feeling, or how crazy train your thoughts are on a daily basis, you're definitely not the only one who has them. So if nothing else, remember that I am always here, I am on your side and cheering you on from afar, and I can't wait to see where your big vision takes you from here.